Business Partner tutorial series. In this tutorial, we'll be looking at setting up and managing trim and molding. From the dashboard, we'll go to our cabinet setup and we go to our trim and molding database. As with all the databases, we start with a list view, and if you would like to see everything in the list, you can click on the red X's here to clear out any search fields that you had previously entered. And at that point, you're seeing all of the items in the database. If you want to look at certain items, let's say we wanted to look at crown mold, we would come in and choose molding and then crown. And all we would see are the crown molds, and we see that we have 72 of 570, or 507, excuse me. And then we could click on the all button to see all again and make another search. Or we could just choose an item in the list to look at. So let's start with this item and use it as our example. In each of these databases have a sub-list view here that you can use to navigate through the items in the list instead of having to go back to the list view. But you could also do another search from here. You could come in and say, well, actually what I wanted to look at were moldings, and I want to look at a crown mold. And I want to look at this molding, let's just say right here, this Cove Cherry. And so you could search from here. You can scroll through this list, pick another item. You can scroll down this list. You can search here just like you can in the list view. And so you could find the molding you're looking for and then make any changes. If you're changing pricing on multiple moldings from the same vendor, you could edit this one and then move to the next one, and edit it and move to the next one. So it makes that editing process much quicker to do that. In this particular database, we have the name, classification, subclassification. This is what we're using for these sorts to be able to sort down to or parse down to a reasonable view till we find the item we're looking for. You'll also notice here that we have this unit of measure that is a little unique to this trim and molding section. Since we do have trim and molding, if it's something you would buy in the linear foot, then we have different answers or questions here than we would have if it were each. And you see how that changed. So if it were in each, what is the square footage for this item? And then this would just be blank because we don't need that second component. But in a linear foot scenario, we want to know what is the square foot per linear foot and what is the standard length of this molding, so that in the areas where we use suggested footage, that suggested footage has a number to base off of. So some moldings are sold in 8-foot lengths, some 10, some 12, and you enter that here so we can utilize that number to give you that suggested quantity. The math from here down should be very familiar with you by now from watching the other videos. Obviously, cost minus a supplier discount, giving you a calculated cost after that discount is subtracted. And then if you have a waste factor, and in this case we have both a supplier discount and a waste factor. As we're cutting moldings, we're going to lose some of that molding in the miters. So we're accounting for that and actually increasing the cost to account for that. And then we have two typical fields that we've seen in the other databases where we can add an additional shop labor. This is irrespective of the labor rates. This is specific to this molding. And you could add an additional shop labor or installation labor. And then we have something that is unique to just a very few items in the database, trim and molding being one of them. Since these items typically would get some sort of finish applied to them, in this particular case, this being a decorative laminate veneer, it does not. So it is set to none. But if you have moldings that need a finish, then you tell it here what your simple, whether it is a simple or complex molding, and we price accordingly. We have in the setup of the program, we give you a percentage field that you can say, when I say something is complex, I want you to take the simple cost and multiply it by that percentage so that it increases that cost. So in the case of a crown mold, if this were not a decorative laminate veneer, I would call that a complex piece. If we had a 4-inch by 8-foot stick of crown mold versus a 4-inch by 8-foot stick of toe kick, the toe kick would be simple to finish, just a little slab piece of wood, and the crown mold would be complex, a lot more sanding, a lot more work with your staining, or if you're glazing, all of the different processes require more work. If that molding has some shapes to it that you have to deal with in the sanding process and all the labor-based processes. And then you have the number of sides. And in our case, I always listed all of my crown molds as two-sided because we did at least clear coat the back side. We didn't sand it. We didn't spend any additional time, but we did clear coat it. So we had material and we did have some labor to spray it. So we just called it two-sided, but you could call it one if you wanted, or if you only finish one, obviously you could call it one. And then as we've talked about in other databases, this show on reports toggle that allows you to have some items that you wouldn't want the client to see on an estimate or proposal, like a complexity upcharge or someone being more trouble than a typical client. You could use this show on reports toggle to make that item not show up but still be priced within the project. So that pretty much covers this database of trim and molding. Thanks for watching yet another business partner estimating software tutorial. Up next, setting up and managing materials.